Let me set a scene for you. You couldn't sleep. Nothing helped. So you went to the store and you bought Benadryl or Unisom or melatonin or something like that. Or you went to your doctor and you were prescribed Lunesta or Ambien or Sonata or something like that. Then it went one of three ways. Number one, it helped, but you don't want to be on it forever. However, you know you won't sleep if you stop it. So now you're in bind. Number two, your doctor doesn't want to keep prescribing it. However, you know you won't sleep if you stop it. Bind. Number three, it's not helping anymore. So now you feel like you're out of options. Dead end. Hey there, Jessica here. I am a therapist in Austin who specializes in sleep issues, and I help people get the sleep they want without medication. So in this video, I will give guidance on stopping your sleep medicine, when to do it, what to consider, what to expect. So let's just talk a little bit about sleeping medication use in adults. The CDC estimates that about 8% of the US adult population takes a pill to help them sleep. So that's like 27.2 million people by my calculation. Use of these medications is higher among women, older adults, and low income individuals, which tracks because those are the three groups that have the most insomnia. A lot of people with sleep issues are going to turn to medications to help, and they're generally effective pretty quickly. They will get you to sleep tonight. But my observation as a sleep specialist is that you're really better off having never gone down that road because you end up in one of those three scenarios I mentioned at the start of the video. So, how and when do you stop the sleeping pills? One of the services I offer in my therapy practice is something called cognitive behavioral therapy for insomnia. I'll link a card. I did an intro to CBT-I video. And so this question really comes up with every sleep client I see who is on some kind of sleep aid, which is most of them. I always give people the choice. So what I do, this CBT-I, it's still going to help even if you're on a sleep aid. I believe it's up to the client whether and when to stop. I have people who come off before, during, after, and not at all while we're working together. And all of those are valid. I also tell all my clients, and I'm going to tell you this now, to discuss any discontinuation of medicine, especially if it's prescribed, with the person who prescribed it. There are some medications that you don't want to just abruptly stop. And some people are just going to do better with a slow, gradual taper. So you always want to have your doctor slash prescriber in the loop with what you're doing. All right, so next point, finding the confidence to sleep without the medication. So there really isn't an optimal time to stop the sleeping medicine other than the time that you feel confident to do so. Like a lot of people will try to stop it before they feel confident to come off the sleeping medicine. And then they tend to rebound and go right back on it. And then they feel really discouraged and they feel really hopeless. And so it's okay to wait a little while until you are feeling more confident. And like I mentioned earlier, you don't have to come off the medication to start working on the insomnia. So anytime you're considering stopping your sleep medicine, it's helpful to consider something called your sleep self-efficacy. So what is that? I'm going to list the tenets of sleep self-efficacy, but I'll also put the list in the description below so that you've got the list. So sleep self-efficacy is about feeling confident in your ability to lie in bed and feel physically relaxed, mentally relaxed, have your thoughts not going a mile a minute, uh, falling asleep in less than 30 minutes, waking up at night fewer than 3 times, going back to sleep within 15 minutes of waking up during the night, feeling refreshed when you wake up in the morning, waking up after a poor night's sleep without feeling upset about it, and preventing a poor night's sleep from interfering with your daily activities. So how confident do you feel in each of those things? If you're not feeling confident in any of those, it actually might not be a good time to try to come off the sleep medicine. I don't think you're going to be very successful. And CBT for insomnia works directly on all those things. So all that stuff I just listed, those are actually the improvements that you can reasonably expect from doing CBT for insomnia with somebody. So I'll just pause real quick and say, if you're finding this interesting or useful, please be sure to subscribe to the channel. I make a lot of sleep related content. I make content about other areas as well, but a lot of it's about sleep. I'm also going to link, I made a playlist of all my other sleep videos. So I'll link that playlist in a card up there. All right. So when is a good time to come off the sleeping medicine? So I'm going to share with you the guidance that I share with my CBT-I people as far as when to stop or to start to taper the meds. And these are in no particular order. So one time that's a good time is after you're seeing some progress in treatment. You're feeling good about the strategies you're learning, and your sleep efficiency is above 85%. So sleep efficiency, not to be confused with sleep self-efficacy, which we talked about just a minute ago. Sleep efficiency is a number, it's a percentage, and you can calculate it by taking the number of minutes you spent asleep on a given night, divide that by the number of minutes you spent in bed, and then multiply it by 100. That will give you a number, and it's a percentage. So 85 to 90% is sort of the optimal range. And I do observe that if people have a sleep efficiency of 85 to 90%, they tend to just feel better and feel like they slept better and feel more rested in the morning. Most people with insomnia are going to have a sleep efficiency well below that. So our goal with CBT-I, one of the goals, is to get that sleep efficiency up. So that's one time. Another time to consider coming off the sleeping medicine is as you begin a particular phase of CBT-I that is called sleep restriction therapy. Now, before you say, wait a minute, I have insomnia, I'm not sleeping, why in the world would I do this sleep restriction that doesn't make any sense? They kind of named it badly. We're not really restricting sleep, we're restricting time in bed. I'm going to link a blog post down below where I actually dive into how spending less time in bed can actually get you better sleep and the rationale and kind of how all that works. So sleep restriction therapy, it's a pretty standard part of CBT for insomnia. How it works is I look at how much sleep you are currently able to get. So I might look at like a week or two of your sleep log. Just by the way, if you're doing CBT for insomnia, you keep a sleep diary. It's part of the treatment. And look at how much sleep you're getting and maybe take like an average of the past week or maybe the past 2 weeks. Let's say it's 6 hours. So right now your body is capable of producing 6 hours of sleep. So then I'm going to say, all right, so for the next week, you are going to spend 6.5 hours in bed at 30 minutes. That is your time in bed prescription. So typically we look at like, what time do you want to get up in the morning? Count back 6.5 hours. That's your new bedtime. Don't go to bed any earlier than that. So there's a couple of ways that I like to try to explain the rationale, because a lot of people get spooked when I say, okay, so your bedtime is 1 o'clock in the morning. If you want to get up at 6:30 or 7:30, depending on what. Oh, and I will say that we don't go any lower than 5.5 hours in bed. So if someone's only sleeping like 4 hours, then their time in bed prescription is 5.5. So we don't go any below that. All right. So I remember, I feel like in like the 90s and 2000s, I was always doing something called defragmenting my hard drive. I haven't had to do that in forever. I guess, I don't know. I'm going to get out of my depth very quickly here. Computers have changed such that we don't need to do it. I don't know. But the way that it was explained to me is that your computer can store stuff really inefficiently, and it's like stores like this over here and that over there and that over there. So defragmenting takes all that stuff and just consolidates it, puts it all in one spot, so your computer runs better, faster, more efficient. Sleep restriction is basically doing that with your sleep. We're taking this like crappy sleep where you're like constantly waking up, or it's taking you forever to fall asleep, or whatever that is. And we're just shoving it all together to get you more consolidated sleep. And usually people find that a small amount of good sleep is actually much better than a large amount of crappy sleep. So, another way that I like to illustrate this is there's this commercial that I remember. I don't remember what they were advertising. I think it had to be a restaurant. But the commercial had a fake restaurant in it called PJ Bland's. And in the commercial, the manager of the PJ Bland's is like walking around to the customers and asking them how their food is. And their response is like, well, it's bland, but there's a lot of it. It's not that great, but it's in a large quantity. So I also like to use that as an example because it's like, all right, so right now you're getting like the PJ Bland's of sleep. What if we could give you a smaller quantity of food that's really good versus this huge quantity of mediocre food? Would you rather have a little bit of good sleep or a lot of crappy sleep? So we're trying to get it to where you have a little bit of good sleep. So that's another time to think about coming off the sleeping medicine. Another time is going to be prior to extending the time in bed window. Now, I know that you're like, what the hell does that mean? That's probably not going to mean anything to you. Um, that's another thing from CBT-I, from the sleep restriction therapy. So, when we're consolidating your sleep, sometimes we keep it there. So maybe somebody starts spending 6.5 hours in bed and they're pretty happy and they're actually feeling pretty good. And they're like, you know what? I'm just going to keep doing this. Other times, people will want to get more time in bed. So we can start adding back the time in bed as their sleep efficiency gets better. And so prior to expanding that, that's another time to start to think about maybe coming off the sleep medicine. And then finally, if the person is willing to commit to 1 full week at a reduced dose. So any of those 4 times are good times to start thinking about coming off the sleep medicine. One's not better than the other, but that's the guidance that I always share with people. So I'm going to mention that I also have a monthly newsletter. So if you like the stuff that's in my videos, you'll probably also like the newsletter. I send it out once a month. I'll link the subscription link down below in the description. Okay, so let's talk about how do you manage the taper or the discontinuation while you're trying to work on your insomnia. So I'm going to give the disclaimer again about just discussing it with your doctor. It might not be that big of a deal. Your doctor might not be worried about it, but it's just a good idea to ask your doctor, is there anything I need to be aware of as I'm coming off this medication? So I usually recommend that people keep the medication consistent initially. Keep taking it as it's prescribed, keep taking it as you've been taking it until the time that we decide it's a good time to come off. And like kind of like everything I've just talked about in this video, like the guidance around when to come off. So keep taking it for now. I will tell people, go ahead and keep taking it the way you've been taking it. It's actually usually better to just take it consistently rather than trying to take it as needed. So let me explain that. A lot of sleep medications are prescribed as needed. And that sounds reasonable. Okay, I'll take it when I need it. I won't take it when I don't need it. The problem is, it's so hard to know. You don't really know if you need it until like the next morning when you look back and you evaluate how you slept. You're not going to know in the moment, like, okay, am I going to fall asleep in the next few minutes? Am I not going to fall asleep for 3 more hours? I don't know. So then you're with this constant like checking and monitoring. We're like, do I need it? Do I need it? How about now? How about now? What about now? And just that right there is probably going to disrupt your sleep, just the checking and the monitoring and the vigilance. So it can actually be better to just take the medication every night, just take it consistently until you're at a place where you think you can start coming off of it. So not to say that some people couldn't make it work with taking it as needed, but that's how that can go awry for people. So keep it consistent. Allow time for the CBTI to work its magic. So experience the benefits, start seeing some of the benefits, start building your confidence in your ability to sleep. Also, I think it's a good idea to learn how to cope with a bad night of sleep before you start trying to come up with sleeping medicine. So bad nights happen to everybody, even people without insomnia. Even the best of sleepers get bad nights. When I do CBTI with people and we're finishing up and their sleep is much better, I always tell them bad nights are coming. I don't know when, but they're coming. You're gonna have a bad night again. It's totally normal. You may have a bad night for no reason. You may have no idea why you have a bad night. Totally normal. The key is to not panic. The key is to not make it a thing. Don't make it an emergency. Don't make it urgent. Don't panic and don't do any behavior trying to fix it that's actually going to make it worse. So, some examples of this are going to bed earlier the next night, staying in bed later, taking a nap, exerting a lot of effort. So, all the stuff, try not to do anything to try to fix it. So, learning to cope with a bad night of sleep. So, you want to keep it consistently, allow time to start seeing some benefits from CBTI, which you will see even if you're taking medicine. Learn to cope with a bad night, then start to implement the taper. Now, I do want to say again, I've said multiple times to talk to your doctor. Some doctors might say you can just stop taking your medication, meaning it's medically safe to do so. So there are some medications that you don't want to just stop them cold turkey because there could be risks. Other medications that you can stop them, meaning there's no risk that you're going to die or that something really catastrophic is going to happen, but it could still be really uncomfortable. You might still experience discomfort. You might still experience rebound insomnia. Even if it's medically safe to come off the medication, that's not to say that it's going to be smooth and easy. So it's still okay to ask your doctor for a gradual tapering plan just to try to make that transition smoother. Okay. So if you're watching this and you're ready to sleep without medications, CBT for insomnia should probably be your next step, in my opinion. So if you're located in the state of Texas, you can reach out to me and ask about working with me. If you are not located in the state of Texas, I'm going to link a directory down below. It's an international directory of people that have the same kind of training and expertise that I do. So I hope this was helpful. And thank you so much for watching. Have a great rest of the day.